All right, how's everybody doing? I am so excited to be here. For 30 years, all I did was fight or train people to fight. And I was sitting in Poland, and the phone rang, and it was General Officer Branch. And the general officer, when they call, you answer, because you never know what's coming. You either got fired or you're moving. And they said, we want you to move to Detroit. And I responded, which combat unit's in Detroit? And they said, well, you know that we need one there, but we don't have one. But that's not where you're going. You're going to go build all of the new vehicles and robots in the autonomous program for the United States Army. And then I had an epiphany. I was like, I'm going to get out of this. You realize I'm not an engineer. I'm a liberal arts guy, so if you want to know about Odyssey or the Iliad, I'm your guy, but there's no way you can send me to Detroit to do this stuff. They said, no, you're going there because of your warfighting prowess, and we want you to talk to the engineers about what to do. So I was stuck, and I went up there for 4 years, and I call it a PhD in technology development. And I'm about 20 miles deep on vehicular autonomy, robots, metallurgy, ballistics. I could bore the hell out of you on all of that. And then about a year and a half ago, I got a call, and they said, we want you to move to Austin, Texas, and take over from your boss. So while I was in Detroit, there was a person in Huntsville, Alabama that was doing helicopters. And we had simulations in Orlando and on and on. So now my portfolio is everything from monkeypox vaccine to space payloads. And I'm not that deep on all of those, right? But through this, I've worked with our Artificial Intelligence Center in Carnegie Mellon. And I've learned and learned and learned about artificial intelligence for the last 5 years. So when I was asked to come here and talk to you, it became clear in my mind that you may be where I was 5 years ago. And I thought initially that I really needed to understand how you develop a platform, what codes, how do you write a deep neural network? And I started down that path until someone said, you're a liberal arts guy, be that guy, okay? And they said, artificial intelligence is not a thing. It's not a widget. You can't easily identify it. It's actually an academic endeavor to create a thinking computer. And good things pop out of that endeavor. And when they all don't rise together. So we saw a huge movement in AI for sensors. And that went through the roof and then plateaued. And with the recent boom in large language models, we've seen that language just go through the roof, and we expect it to plateau at some point. But this has been going on since the 50s, and the new chips and the amount of data that's accessible has allowed us to move so fast in a short period of time, but it's been a grind. But you are what I'd like to call the commander. You have people working for you that are really technical. So how do you give them guidance? And what is your role? And when I say what is your role, I mean to the detail. What are you responsible for? So can you go to the next chart? Oh, that's me. I'm used to having people, sorry. That's me. Okay. So leading your organization through transformation in the AI age. As I thought about this conference in our discussion today, I said, what's constant in its leadership? So this line here, this dotted line represents leadership with the assumption that all of your leaders operate between 90 and 100% effectiveness. If not, you need another class. We're not going to talk about that one here, but you need to address that separately. But with the assumption that between 80 and 90% effectiveness of your leadership, and the yellow being AI and ML tools, you rest right at that dot. And that dot looks very small in comparison, but it is the most important thing that will happen to your company, to your industry, to whomever you want to lead. And that is you. And within that dot, you have several several things that you have to do, and they're seen on this chart that will blow up in a moment. But the assumption that I'm making, and obviously if you want to destroy someone's argument, you challenge their assumptions, but the assumption that I'm making is that after a certain point of introducing AI and ML into your organization, no amount of leadership is going to help. And that if you don't give the proper guidance up front, once you get past that dotted line, that trajectory equals risk. And some of it's good risk, and some of it's bad risk. But what you want to avoid is a gamble. Because you can recover from risk, but you can't recover from a gamble. And the difference is solely on your shoulders, okay, as the leader. So this is what we call the operational process. The operations process where you, as the leader, interject direction, purpose, and motivation to your organization. Now, many leaders fail because they start at direct. But what I'd encourage you to do is start with understand. Spend time thinking and understanding. What are your pain points? What are your competitors doing? Where are the swivel chairs in your organization where you have a process and one person has to deal with two different systems? What are the data gaps that you possess? What are the data opportunities? And then I think that you, more than anyone else, have to understand the time requirements across your organization. So where are you spending the most time? Where do you have the largest number of employees that you could repurpose for something else if only there was a tool to replace what they are doing? And finally, what decisions are required on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whenever it is? What decisions are required and how are you getting that information? And so after you understand that, we go to visualize. And whenever I talk about visualization, I ask people to think of perfection. You're the leader. What is the perfect organization? What is the perfect structure for your type of business? Understanding that perfection is never attainable. What is perfection? Spend some time visualizing that. Then work through all of your processes. Start analog, draw them out, and then move those processes. Okay, now let's look how we would digitize this part of our organization. What dashboards do we need? Visualize those dashboards. What information do you need to make decisions? How should data flow in your organization? Next, what are the lines of operation? And what are the lines of effort that define your workflow? You really have to visualize what perfection is, and it starts with how you do it now. This is how our workflow operates now. This is the way we want it to go. And that's going to take some time. And what I would encourage you is once you visualize that, you then have to move into describe. This is really hard. I can't tell you the number of times that someone that has worked for me has absolutely laid an egg. And when I was a young leader, I used to get angry or upset that, they didn't listen. But the reality is, as I've gotten older, it's because I was not clear. I did not take the time to make sure it was simple enough to understand. In 35 years in the military, I've learned that simplicity is brilliance. And it takes a long time to get that. But as you're describing the direction you want to go, your campaign plan as the commander, it's your intent. And it should be broad enough that your subordinates can operate within that intent because they understand where they want to go to provide you options. And then spend some time on this idea of perfection. And when you articulate what's perfection, also articulate what is acceptable. We will always strive to be perfect, but these are the areas that are acceptable and will continue us on the trajectory that we have set. Your description has to be repeatable. Your subordinates have to be able to carry that message. And so the simplistic message that you give, your intent, it has to be able to be delivered by anyone on your team. And then the way you can absolutely confirm this is you get a confirmation brief. So in the military, what we do is we give you orders, and at the end of the order, which lasts, anywhere between 15 minutes to 2 hours, at the end of the order, your subordinates, your direct reports, you say, okay, confirm what you heard. Because I want to make sure there's zero light between us as you move forward, because I trust you to take this message across the entire company, but I want to confirm that we understand the problem that we're trying to solve together and where AI can be placed to make our systems better, to increase our profit, whatever that is. I want to make sure that there is common understanding through that brief. And then once you have that, you have to direct them. So this is not all necessarily on the same day. You have to direct people within your organization and give the person responsible the task and the deadline. You all know this, right? But it's generally where most people fail, is the follow through on each specific task and the deliverable. Particularly if it's in a PERT chart organization along the critical path, those suspenses must be met, as you know. But that is an opportunity for you, as you're injecting artificial intelligence into your organization, to establish deadlines and have a common view and understanding of whether or not those deadlines are going to be met and if we're going to be able to reach the end state with our artificial intelligence transformation. Then, when you direct this, what are your measures of performance and measures of effectiveness? So measures of performance, did you or did you not accomplish the task? Measures of effectiveness, by accomplishing that task, did it have the intended outcome or not? And you have to track that. The last thing I would say is on direct, you as a leader are going to have to make decisions on your artificial intelligence way forward. And in the military, we organize it with, if and then. And we call it a decision support matrix. And everyone knows what those key decisions are, so they can feed data in to help you make the decision based on the most current understanding. So as this AI transformation happens, then you move to assess. So you have your decision support matrix, or whatever you want to call it. You have your measures of effectiveness. You have your measures of performance. Everyone understands what they're doing. Everyone understands how that fits into a bigger picture, but it's trying to assess. And these are your meetings, right? These are the weeklies, the monthlies, the quarterlies, however you do it in your organization. But start with, this is the problem we're trying to solve. This is where we are applying an artificial intelligence or even an optimization program. This is how we're applying it. This is how we're agile in our development of that. And then you establish metrics, as you know, like, okay, we reduced this many swivel chairs. Our processing time is reduced by X. Whatever those areas are that you need to assess. And then, probably most important, customer and employee satisfaction, which cannot be judged in a meeting. It's judged by you sitting down next to your employees or your customers and just asking hard questions, uncomfortable questions, because you know you just spent a lot of money on this artificial intelligence program. is it right? What are the pain points that it created? The law of unintended consequences. If you could do that, and you get that honest feedback, then you will be leading through while you're assessing at the same time. I'm going to pause there and take any questions, and we can take it in any direction you want, because I've been through this probably 8 times in the last 5 years, just trying to introduce new processes through artificial intelligence and some machine learning, whether it's a tactical scenario or just administrative processes. So I'm happy to share my failures and my limited success. Sir.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. This is very helpful. I guess just to your point, is you've, in your experiences, you've gone through this and led the organization through it. What are the typical areas which are the weaknesses, right? Which are the weakest links where we need to be really a lot more careful, or what are the areas where things have not gone as directed?
So I call them the undeciders. The people who in your organization whose entire job is getting ready to be replaced through processes. So as you're going through the visualization, like, how is that going to affect them? And communicating with them that you're not going away. I need your help here. I need your talent elsewhere. You're spending too much time on these menial, dirty, dangerous tasks that a machine can do. So it's generally the humans that are a problem. The second one is we're not honest on our workflows. So when you have some hotshot artificial intelligence scientists or expert come in, they don't know anything about your workflows. You are the expert. But oftentimes what I've found is that the leader doesn't fully explain it. So we waste time. They waste maybe days or weeks where they're building their model, and then when they get down with the actual workers, they find out that either the leader didn't know, or B, the leader didn't want to fully disclose that they have these challenges. So I think it's just an honesty problem at that point.
Thank you.
Sir.
So what was the most successful AI implementation that you did based on whatever measurements that you set out for? And then maybe you could describe one that didn't go so well, and like why did it go off the rails?
Yeah, so my most successful was my Miles Dyson moment. And nobody knows who Miles Dyson is until I get to the end of this. But in 2019, on July 9th, I had probably 250 of the smartest people in the Army in this space in Washington, D.C. And I submitted a challenge. And the challenge was I wanted sensors armed with algorithms that could identify enemy vehicles by location and type, then aggregate that information into an interface that allows you to promulgate that for common understanding while a machine in the background is optimizing for the best lethality or non-lethality solution against that target. And I don't want a human in the loop. And we did it. And much like I'm sure Oppenheimer felt, it scared the hell out of me. My idea was that you inject the human after you've solved the problem, which is, I think, the best way to do it. But it was my Miles Dyson moment, because Miles Dyson was the gentleman that Sarah Connor came back to kill in the Terminator movies, because if you could only kill Miles Dyson, then none of this would have happened. And because this was my idea, it was extremely successful. But I kept looking over my shoulder because I didn't know if Sarah was coming for me or not. And my biggest failure was I tried to ask an AI model to do something it couldn't do. I wanted the AI model to be tied to game theory and predict the way the enemy would move on the battlefield based on terrain, weather, our movements, and their mission. And so we ingested, I spent a lot of money on this too. We ingested probably a terabyte, if not more, of data into this model. And the company that was doing it for us is world renowned. So that it wasn't them. But it was our data labeling and their inability to scrape that data and then label it because it was so new. So I probably spent $15 million on a project that couldn't be done because my data was not, it was impossible to label it. And everyone will tell you, oh, well, we can take structured and unstructured data and we can ingest it in. Okay, show me first. I'll give you $1,000 to show me once that you can do that with this data before I spend, taxpayer dollars again. But it really does come down to the data. And I'm trying to be kind here. Everyone that talks about artificial intelligence that doesn't know anything about it, they drift towards the data. It's like, it's all about the data. You'll see some general on TV going, data is the new ammunition. Yeah, it's kind of like, no shit, okay? I mean, it's like, we always have used data to make decisions, okay? But the ability to then do it at the speed necessary for combat operations or for the speed of business, that's what's new. And understanding where to inject it and where not to. You end up spending a lot of money on something you could have just hired a computer scientist to give you an optimization program. You actually didn't need the artificial intelligence.
Are you implying by that data is obviously the underlying ingredient in this, but what AI is giving you is just the unbelievable speed? Does it also give you predictability?
Yeah, so only thing we know for sure about artificial intelligence in the direction that we're moving right now is that it will make mistakes. 100% guaranteed this artificial intelligence will make mistakes in a boundless world of data. I'm not implying that the data is irrelevant. I'm saying that that's the first level. Like that's your first understanding that data is important. But when you're applying artificial intelligence or machine learning models to what you want to have done, the labeling of that data becomes paramount, and the model's ability to take unstructured data and turn it into structured data is often exaggerated by the companies that will sell you. No, none of these companies that I've ever dealt with do it all well. You have people that are incredible on the user interface, that front end, it's just boom, like your iPad. And if anyone said this, I apologize. Oh, look at little Johnny, my grandson. He's so smart, he can already work an iPad. And the chances that little Johnny is smart, probably 50-50, right? I mean, you don't know. But it's so intuitive, right? That front end. And then a lot of people are really good on the middleware, okay? And the ability to pull in data in the middleware. And there's some that are incredible at labeling. You got to make sure that you're paying for what you want. You want the best for the problem that you have. And they're all really, really smart people, okay, or they wouldn't be in this space. But I always like to ask the CEOs of companies, okay, if you had to spend, if someone gave you an additional $50 million to improve your models, where would you spend it? Would it be on your ability to pull in unstructured data? Would it be your middleware and interface with other items, or would it be in the user interface? Frankly, the user interface is the easiest of all this problem. So that's what I was. Please.
How do you motivate your team members to help on this journey if some of them may lose their jobs as a result?
Well, it's good because I'm in the government, so I have that advantage. We don't fire anybody. Basically, I need your help, employee, because I don't understand the workflow like you do. And I need you to Sherpa us through this and work with the developers for agile software development so I can iterate faster and faster. And trust me, when this company succeeds, you're going to succeed. There's going to be a place for you here. And as the profits rise, you know what we do every February, right? When that bonus comes in. So please, I need your help. And either that or what else would you like to do? Okay, once this is done, we think this is going to replace it. How can we help you? Because I'm always concerned, and this is a whole nother different talk that I give, but with your culture, what are they going to say that night at the dinner table? Start with that and work yourself backwards to that conversation. What message do you want to deliver? Like, wow, they really trust me and care about me. And we're going to go through this, and it's really neat, and they're going to bring me on and even educate me on how to do this. That's how I would handle it. Sir.
Thank you, General. Where do you find, you've talked a lot about, how you lead your team through these challenges, how you manage down. I think the problem space that I'm interested in is how you manage out and how you manage up as far as expectations of this technology are concerned, because what I find is that the rhetoric around AI is so expansive, and the expectation that this is capable of anything, it's capable of, where do you find the biggest misconceptions are when you're, tasked with managing expectations for folks? And how do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, let's start with communicating up, maybe to your board or whomever. These are our pain points. This is where we're losing time, this is where we're losing money, whatever that is. These are our pain points. We believe we can fix 2 of those with artificial intelligence, and this is what we're going to do. And the expectation is that on the backside of this, we're going to improve by this percentage, whatever it is. And I always like to caveat with, but remember, I'm a liberal arts guy. So I'm going to give you gates along the way as I measure myself, as we develop the software, that I will come back to you and say, look, this is working or not, because your superiors trust you or you wouldn't be there. And your second part of the question, I apologize.
It's really where do you feel a disconnect between what people think the technology should be able to do versus what it can actually do in the current state of play?
Generally, in the Army, we say things like, well, just sprinkle some AI on there, and that's kind of the opinion, like, oh, this is just going to solve all our problems. And it's not. Because while all algorithms come back with a confidence percentage, which is, I love it. I mean, it's 80% confident. And you only have to be better than a human, and that's a low bar in some cases, right? So 80% is pretty good. And what I find is that if you don't understand what AI can do, which is optimize, reduce risk, give you data that you never had before, and put it in a user interface that allows you to make timely and quick decisions, if you only focused on what I just said there, it can change your world. When you start thinking, well, it's going to go and it's going to, let's say you're in the financial market. This is going to give me a marked advantage over my competitors because it's going to analyze all these things, but we know the market doesn't respond necessarily to what we would like it to at times. So the model is going to be wrong. And if you're counting on artificial intelligence, I guess this is the best way to put it. Don't let artificial intelligence people trick you into the fact that it's a decision maker. It's a recommender. It's providing you options. And there's some incredible space right now where the large language models obviously can be corrupted or not based on the data. But allowing you to process that large amount of information is one thing. Asking the large language model, and there's only about 5 companies that I know that can do this, what are my gaps? What am I not seeing? What is missing? And those type of companies, that's the next move. Because most of these large language models are just giving you data that's scraped across and like, this is it. But the next level of cognitive behavior with this artificial intelligence is recommending what else you need, what your data is missing. And that's huge. Anyway, so that's some of the things. Yes, sir.
Thank you, General. So the question, I have a twofold question. The first one is, what are with the advancements in generative AI, some of the security considerations and risks that we should think about? And secondly, what's the importance or the risks of not having a human in the loop?
Well, the risk for not having a human in the loop could be catastrophic. Because we know, like I said, these models, all I know is they're going to fail. They may not fail big, they may just be, it's a context problem more often than not. But, so you have to have that human in the loop to make decisions. In my business, we're an ethical force. We will never fire a lethal shot without a human confirming it. As opposed to our enemy, who shoots on detect. We shoot on identify. That doesn't sound like a big difference to most people, but we have to positively confirm that that's an enemy before we will shoot at it. Our enemy is not using AI in that space in the same way. And for the generative AI, I mean, it's exciting, right? I mean, you can't help but get excited. But it's brittle. Right? There's brittle parts of generative AI that will always, until we get past it, will always require a human to say, that doesn't seem right. I've been in this business for 10 years. I've been with this company for 7. I've never seen anything like that. I question it. Is a huge aspect when you're dealing with generative AI. It's wonderful. And the things it can do are, I mean, amount of data and pulling it together. And the coolest one I saw was someone that had a large body of work. I don't remember the author, but had a large body of work over, I think it was a male, but his lifetime, and then 2 more of the same. And they pulled it into a model and then used generative AI to ask, like, what would Albert Einstein say about this? Like something in today. And then scraping all of that to then formulate it. That's really great because there's a large body of work. And you can really generate something that you would believe is factual. Like that's how Albert Einstein would have answered that question. So, I mean, we're on the cusp of something really, really amazing. Like I said, not all boats rise together. So I don't know when language is going to plateau and work through it. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just building on what you were mentioning earlier about, identifying what's missing. And it seems to me, and it's a little bit of a vague question, but I'd be interested in your input as to what do you do about information which is not necessarily on the internet, but which is obviously valuable information often, and what do you do about incorporating those conversations that are had among personnel or leaders or managers that are of, say, a confidential nature but are very relevant to decision making and going forward? How do you incorporate that into an AI model and have it also be secure?
Sure. So I'll use an example that happens with us. We've got top secret, we've got secret, We have unclassified just for generalities, but within those there's several different types. I want the lowest level commander to be able to make a decision on relevant information. That person doesn't have a top secret clearance. What makes it top secret? So we start with that. What makes it HIPAA? What makes it whatever it is? And then remove that. Because the decision or the information that's required to make that decision, it doesn't matter where the source is. So it's often the source of that information. And then if you create a zero trust environment where you are ensuring each person can sign in and only gets what they're allowed to receive. So you establish that zero trust, and then you scrape off the classification parameters that are needed, you can really move fast. But how much is too much? And it's really hard. I don't need everyone at the lowest level, I'll just take it, to know my wife's birthday. It's not important. But if they're on my calendar, they can access it, right? And that's very simple. So what is required? And by identifying what decisions are made at echelon, then you can start parsing that data accordingly and then removing the classifications. I think that's what you're asking. Is that fair?
Yeah, that and the larger question of how AI can be functional and useful while at the same time taking into account information that may not be on the internet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Which includes the internal conversations, but also includes just information that you may have got from numerous other sources. Because right now, it's just as you say, it just tells you what's scraped off the internet, but as people know, much of the most valuable information that people have is stuff that you can't get on the internet. That's why it's valuable.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to the earlier chart. I think this really lays it out. So the public data you know is corrupted. I mean, it's very valuable on like maybe weather patterns, but even with ChatGPT, that has so much Chinese influence on it. It's unbelievable. And then your client data is obviously protected, and then you said limited access and proprietary. To me, that's top secret, secret, unclassified, not trustworthy. Okay, and but as far as conversations, your aspect there, unless it's written down on the computer, you're never going to get that. So the meeting notes and things like this, how do you want to use that, and where do you want that? Limited access or client data?
There's a labeling question in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Primarily the question what you're asking is a confidential information. So I think the concept of confidential AI where on-prem LLMs can be deployed where the information will not go on any public LLM like ChatGPT and all those things. That would be running on-prem, the data what is trained, and that is again going to rely on those servers only. Second part is obfuscation of data. Primarily the key information what you would not like it to be disclosed. So there is a separate layer when you train, the information is obfuscated, that layer is coming in between. Now in the field of security now, LLM injections are also there, like SQL injection, all the attacks. So there, this information is going to be a key element in coming days. We'll be seeing these things, but it is primarily confidential AI on-prem. Again, nothing connected on internet or anywhere. There, primarily what you are saying could be answered, and your confidential information could be used, and inferencing and all those things could be done.
I have time for one more question. Sir.
Hi, I'm kind of organizationally a cousin. I'm the CIO at the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Oh, nice.
So you mentioned in your leadership model to visualize perfection. But I'm going to guess you don't use that as the standard, as the gate to use AI. So what is your gating element when you decide to switch from the existing process to one that's AI enhanced?
So why I start with perfection is because that would be an optimal workflow. We'll just use workflow as perfection. This is where my current workflow is. I want to reduce the time in whatever part of the company by 50%, 60%, whatever that is. That's where I want to target AI. And I use it as a targeting tool that says, these are the processes or workflow problems that I have. This is where it can be applicable. And some of it may come down to budget. Like you and I have a different budget, right? But for a company, it's like, I can fix one of these problems. Which one am I going to fix? And then once I choose that platform and work, I can go into the next one and the next one. And so for me, everything starts with the enemy, and the enemy in each one of your companies is inefficiency. And so just finding that out, that's how I would approach it. I hope that's helpful.